Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. We have a really fun episode. I don't know if you've watched Love is Blind, but I usually hate reality TV shows, but I loved this one. I thought it was a fun experiment, and I love Gianna, and we're going to dive in and talk about all the things attachment styles and relationships and kind of analyze their relationships and just have a fun talk. So feel free to join in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And here she is. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. This is going to be like so fun. I'm so excited. Because I'm literally like I'm doing these like, I'm analyzing these people anyways, like for fun. So I'm excited to do this in a helpful way that like benefits other people. But anyways, I'm Gianna. I am a love and relationship coach, and I work with predominantly women, single or in a relationship, and I help them overcome anxious tendencies in relationships, codependency issues, low self-worth, body image, and really help them love themselves, feel whole, manifest the relationship that they want that's really healthy and amazing and satisfying. So
yeah. And I've been following her for a long time. I don't know how long, but I always love her content. She's like the only relationship coach where I'm like, oh, I love that she sees multiple types of relationship. It's not just one size fits all. And I don't know, I just really relate to her content. I have had abandonment issues, and I kind of relate to like the anxious and detached styles. So it's really cool to watch her information, and I just really connect with it. So I wanted to share her information with you guys.
Oh, I'm honored. Yeah. I love the shout outs that you give me. I'm like, because it's like, no shade on anybody else or anything like that. But, there's a lot of like rules out there. People are pretty, like some relationship coaches can be really extreme in what they believe. And that's cool because that's what they are really passionate about. But they're like, no, like some people are like, you have to only be in the feminine role and you are never allowed to like text him first or coach him first. Or like polyamory is the way. If you're monogamous, you are like in bullshit and like you're wrong. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just think that you just have to come from that wholeness and trust yourself and listen to yourself and do what feels right for you. And that's the premise that I operate from. So, I've worked with polyamorous people. I've worked with people that really were, about the feminine energy stuff, and, people that were just like, fuck the rules and everything in between. But it's really just like the core work that I'm about. However you want to apply that is up to you and what makes you happy,
Yeah, and that's what I don't relate to. Same with business coaches, where they're like, it's one size fits all, you have to do it this way. And then they push you in a box and then it hurts. It's like hard. It's like a struggle. It's like against who you are, which me being in my feminine 100% of the time is against who I am. So like, I have to balance both. And so, yeah, there's some relationship coaches that I'm like, oh, I love her feminine. I go listen to her when I know I need to connect with that. But then on other sides, I'm like, she's only coaching people who want to get married, or she's only coaching people who want this type of relationship. So there's not very many coaches that are like, hey, let's figure out what works for you. And that's also how I coach my business. So I love it.
Yeah, I think like limitation and rules, it really does not leave room for listening to ourselves and intuition. So I think if we listen to ourselves and our intuition, and that guides us, that leads us to certain, ways of being, whether polyamory or, always being in the feminine role, like more power to you if that makes you happy. But you don't have to like identify with a label or a box. You can if you want, but if that's truly in alignment for you, you're going to continue to align and choose that over and over again,
Yep, exactly. Well, let's talk just quickly about what the attachment styles are, and like maybe a quick note on what they are. So there's secure, anxious, and what was the third one?
Avoidant.
Avoidant. Okay, so explain just quickly what those three ones are.
Well, there's actually more than three, but those are like the three ones that people know about that, because like if you go like into like psychology and stuff, there's like other ones like anxious, ambivalent, and whatever. But if you understand like those three main ones, you're in a pretty good spot. And the anxious attachment, like a lot of people know about those three main attachment styles with like attachment theory. And there's like a book out there called Attached that kind of gets into those. And, typically, to put it very generally, I would say the anxious attachment person is someone who's pretty, tends to be more codependent and needy and is seeking validation and reassurance and outside of themselves. Um, and noted. And, is seeking that reassurance outside of themselves and, maybe finds themselves drawn to like unavailable people and, yeah, just the needy energy, to put it really simply. And they typically have low self-worth. And what they're really doing, like their goal, like how it's really explained in the book Attached, for example, is the different attachment styles like root in evolutionary ways of being in relationships. So basically, anxious attachment people find security and closeness, right? They find it beneficial to be close to people, whereas like avoidant attachments, people have like negative associations with closeness. So, and all this goes down to like childhood stuff more than anything. But, like the avoidant attachment style people typically are, the opposite. They're the unavailable ones. They are the ones that self-sabotage and when they get close to someone, when they have intimacy, they like get out of there and they're a bit emotionally unavailable. And yeah, and then you can be a mix of both. You can be a mix of, which I have been, when I was out of alignment in my relationships, I was both. So I would have moments where I was like needy and anxious and like love me and like me and validate me and like, and then there was times where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting this love and attention. Gotta get out of here, self-sabotage, like,
Yep.
ooh, let me chase this unavailable person instead of like the easy available love,
Yep.
And so to put it simply, that's avoidant attachment styles. And then where they have like a negative association with closeness. And then the secure attachment is really where you have that healthy interdependence, where you have needs and you can be intimate and you can be close, but you're not giving away your power, you're not being codependent, and you're also not being avoidant either. It's that healthy connection. So
Yeah, which is hard to have, especially if you've been anxious and detached or anxious and gosh, why do we keep calling it detached? What is it?
avoidant.
Avoidant. Okay, anxious and avoidant. So I've been both too. So I get really anxious sometimes. I'm like, oh, like, why aren't they responding on their text messages? And it like means something of me versus just being in my power in a secure relationship. And this doesn't mean anything to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is just maybe they're busy. It's when you're relaxed. It's when you're like in your power. So
Yeah.
with relating to Love is Blind, I remember watching and Giannina, she triggered me. I remember watching where she was like, I thought they were a cute couple, and Damien, he was like being so calm, and I was like, he's sexy, and like, I think they're cute, but she's like feisty, and she's kind of rude to him, and kind of like gets feisty. And then at one point she was complaining, or she was like, what did she say? She was like, you're not the best sex I've had, or you're not like, how you always compliment me and I don't say it back. I was like, damn, that cuts deep. And then I was like, okay, why is she triggering me? I was like, oh gosh, I'm kind of like her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't feel like my needs are being met, sometimes I will like cut them back or be like anxious, but then like rude or feisty, or I overreact when I'm not feeling like I'm getting what I want, which I noticed her doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, my
Which is
relationship is like hers.
yeah, it's total passive aggressiveness, and um it's also pushing people away,
Yep.
right? So like when you don't get what you want and it makes you feel some kind of way, instead of like being conscious with those feelings and feeling them and addressing them in a productive way and taking responsibility for like your trigger, right? It is oh, you're not giving me the love that I want, so I'm gonna maybe be like an asshole to you and like give you a reason to not love me, so that way I can protect myself from not being loved when I'm actually trying, you know?
Yep. And I've done that. I've done that lots.
I've done that too.
And so, like, the last time when I watched this, I finally realized, oh, she's triggering me because I'm like her. And I was like, and I liked him in the situation. And I was like, you know what she should do is she should be calm and not reactive and like not be cutting. And I was like, wow, that's probably what I should do too, even though I'm angry or even though I'm anxious. And so literally from watching this show, it's helped me be more secure and less anxious. And so I was like, wow, I want to talk about this and all the other couples.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's great to like see your own patterns like played out in front of you so you can be more subjective with yourself. I think that's great.
Yeah, and then you guys, just a quickie, like this would, what is it called? This is like, I'm going to give away some of the parts of the show. So if you haven't watched it, we're going to talk a little bit about it. So beware, stop the episode, but her and Damien, they look a lot more secure now. I don't know if you watched the reunion, but she's a lot more open and she looked more secure. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. She probably saw herself and she was like, how can I fix this? Whoa, like I was being kind of rude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I follow her on Instagram and I love her. She's so great.
Yeah.
She's awesome. And yeah, she definitely, it seems like she really looked at herself and really like did work on her wounds. And I think that that's really beautiful and awesome. And as a result, like their relationship is going well, it seems. So I think that's great.
Yeah. So who's your favorite couple?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. Like, do you mean favorite like rooting for or favorite like because it, I think my favorite person was Giannina, but I really saw, you know, is Jessica the blonde one, right? She got
That's because the one that was with Mark.
right. She got so much hate from people, and although I understand, I couldn't help but to like empathize with her because I related to her and how I used to be in my relationships a lot. So I was like, she was kind of one of my favorites where I was like kind of rooting for her. Um, like from this like place of love, like, girl, I want the best for you. Like, come on, So, and I thought Mark was sweet. So I liked them. I thought that whole situation, that whole little triangle with her and, gosh, what's that guy's name?
Barnett.
Barnett. Yeah, Barnett and Amber, I believe her name is, Jessica. I thought that was pretty juicy and entertaining. Like,
Oh, yeah. Very entertaining.
I was rooting for Jessica. Like, I didn't really have like favorite couples, but oh no, who I loved, was it Lauren?
Yeah, Lauren and Lauren's the beautiful African American and Cameron. Yeah, Cameron.
Yeah,
I got them up so I
yeah.
wouldn't get the names wrong.
I feel like they had a very healthy connection
Yeah.
that was like, I think that by far they had the healthiest relationship that was secure, it was vulnerable, it was also like beautiful and intimate and also like sexy and like that was the best. Like they were my favorite.
That's what a lot of people say, is that they're like the favorite. And I think the only struggle was something that you might be able to talk about, this is kind of programming, like with her family. I think that was the only big thing, was her doubts of programming, of you need to be with a specific race, that was in her head that she was battling.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's why that experiment was so like great for her because I think she was limiting herself, right? Like, it's one thing to have a genuine preference, but I don't think that that was something that she necessarily in her heart really cared about, but it was more like what she thought she was supposed to do. And so she was limiting herself and trying to like fit this mold instead of like really listening to her heart. And so that the experiment really allowed her to like get out of her head and really trust what she felt. So I thought that was beautiful. And she did have an opportunity where she still had to confront those things, those thoughts. But at that point she had already like emotionally invested in a person and had been open to him to where she could actually just move past those things and have a great relationship.
Yeah, I love that, because I think a lot of us are like that. And I think Jessica was like that. I think in her head, she wanted someone tall and she wanted someone her age. And like she had all these notions that she kept playing, like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to think of me in this specific way. And she literally kept saying, oh my gosh, like, how are they going to be okay with my age? And literally nobody said anything.
Yeah, nobody cared.
And she just kept being like, oh, my age, my age, my age. And then nobody said anything, not even the mom, not even this. And I'm just like, girl, it's just in your head.
Yeah, I think for her, like I understand that to an extent, if it's just like a genuine preference. But I think she was just kind of looking for excuses. I think she was looking for reasons to not, and I almost kind of like, cause I've seen people talk about this and the people's relationships on the show. And I almost kind of like, I think that it was really brave and vulnerable and personal to put that on TV. So like much love and respect to them for that. And, I don't want to throw shade on any of the people, rooting for all of them. But yeah, I definitely noticed that I felt like she seemed to just be looking for reasons to like kind of push him away at times, like excuses to not be close.
That's what I think too. She was just
Yeah.
finding a reason to, because she was so used to her situation, her being alone, and he didn't fit the mold that she wanted. She said at the beginning that she really always was super picky. And then just like me, I always found a reason with my past relationships when it started getting close of why I shouldn't be with them, or if they ever broke my heart, like what's wrong with them. And then I'd like get swallowed up with the fear and doubt, and then I'd make it happen.
Right. Yeah, no. And I completely relate to that too. That was something I did a lot in past relationships where, I pretty much self-identified as this person because for a while I was like this needy girl who didn't have a lot of self-worth, and I was chasing and kind of pining after unavailable people, right, that didn't want me back. And so for me, for a while, I didn't think that I was the problem. I thought it was like the men I dated, like if they were just more available, like I would be happy and I would get what I wanted. But then when I had like available love in my life that was wanting me, that was choosing me back, I would be like, oh no, like we're not right for these reasons, these reasons, these reasons. And I like eventually realized that, I was self-sabotaging and I was pushing love away because I like deeper down, I didn't feel worthy. Deeper down, I was like afraid and I was being, avoidant. Right. And so, yeah, I think that Jessica was definitely doing that. And I think that, yeah, that's why I was like rooting for her because I related to that because I used to do the same thing and, and look for reasons to push people away to protect myself. And it's so much easier to, and oftentimes it's very unconscious. Like it's a very subtle feeling of, oh, this feels uncomfortable, or like that about you bothers me. I don't like that. It turns me off, but it's really just like a defense mechanism. And you have to really like feel your feelings and like be self-aware and like kind of look at yourself and like look at what you're feeling and why, and like explore your feelings and be subjective in order to like figure out that, okay, like that's not really that big of a deal. And it really boils down to, I'm going to push you away. I'm going to reject you before you ever have the chance to hurt me or reject me,
I did that pretty much all my relationships before. As soon
Mhm.
as I got close, as soon as I started really caring, I'd get like this anxious, like, why aren't they responding to me? Is there something wrong? They're seeing other people. And I'd make these crazy stories in my head, and then I'd push them away. And
Mhm.
then I'd find a reason that we're not good together. And then I'd self
Mhm.
sabotage. So,
Right.
all these situations as well, I was like, that's their problem. They didn't want a relationship. They didn't want to commit. They this. It was all those people's fault. And I was like, okay, who's the main person in this situation? Because
Who's
a
the
lot of those
common
people,
denominator?
what's the common denominator? All these people actually, like a lot of them got married or in healthy relationships that were
Mhm.
married. And I'm like, okay, if I'm the common denominator, there must be something going on. And that's when I really went and looked at myself. So anybody listening, if you are the common denominator, what are you doing? And what is your style? And do you notice if you start getting really close to them that you find a way to self-sabotage?
Right. For sure. I completely agree.
So what about, okay, so Carlton and Diamond, do you remember them? So that was the guy, he was bi and he came out after they already were like engaged. What do you
Mhm.
think of their style and how they handled things?
Well, I think that, yeah, I definitely think Carlton, although I understand, but I think he allowed his insecurity around his sexuality to kind of sabotage. I think he, although she didn't necessarily have like a super loving, warm response that would maybe be extremely validating for what he felt like he needed in order to feel,
Mhm.
good about himself. Um, I don't necessarily think she rejected him either or was being like homophobic or anything like that, which is what I saw people saying. But I think that he projected his insecurity so hard onto her, and like kind of pushed her away and was like really nasty to her, to try and protect himself is what it definitely seemed like. So I think, he seemed a bit like a combination there, some like anxious, like wanting that love, wanting that validation, wanting that closeness, but also at the same time being afraid of it and pushing it away and being like, I'm going to be like a giant dick to you and like be toxic to you. So that way I can push you away so you can't actually reject me. Cause he was like, she wasn't even rejecting him, but he felt like, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting rejected. So I'm going to be like toxic and like throw a freaking bomb on this relationship to protect myself,
I think his fear definitely perpetuated. Like it just like when he didn't instantly get exactly what he wanted in that validation, yeah, he just like completely just self-sabotage. He just like threw it off. And yeah, she, they both kind of seemed like they had a lot of things to go through and work on. And I don't know, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on relationships like that, where they kind of like start like that, but then they grow. But they had a lot of room to grow. Like they were both triggering each other. Where some people, they're in these relationships and they never trigger the change, is what I kind of think. But with them, they were just like toxic. Like he was an asshole, then she was an asshole, and then it just like blew up, where they just wanted love. They just wanted that validation, that comfort. He really wanted like that comfort, and then she just wanted space, where he just wanted like a little bit of validation. Like, no matter what, I'm here for you and I just need some time, but I'm not rejecting you or something, like holding space for him.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think she didn't, although like we're humans, like we're not going to be perfect 24/7, but I definitely think she fed into his stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think if she would have been like really centered in the situation, which again, is not always going to happen, but I think she would have just been like, this is not about me. And I think she just got really reactive to his defense mechanisms. So he was like, I don't remember exactly what was said, but, at that scene, like where they're sitting by the pool and, it turns into this thing where they're like cursing at each other and she's like, boy, bye, and like he, I think he was a bit like pushing her away and like subconsciously kind of like testing her and like,
Yep.
Trying to get that. And that never works. That backfires. Like when you're toxic to someone, like you can't expect someone with like self-respect and self-love to like think like to be like, oh yeah, that means I'm gonna love you more when you're treating me that way. You know what I mean? And if somebody does, like that's not healthy. And I think that she did like react in an intense way to his disrespect. And that was probably highlighting some wounds for her, around whatever it is that made her feel that she needed to address, that caused her to feel hurt and react in an over the top way back and like match his energy,
Yep, they were just literally back and forth. He just said like she was a bitch or something, and it was just really reactive. I was like, whoa, that blew up real quick. And then the throwing of the ring, like everything was just really dramatic, and it was just a lot of feelings like bursting out, I think. It was just crazy. Which I think they did have a connection, and that's why it was so hard. I think he really did like her, and he was just
I agree 1,000%.
Yeah. Did you watch the reunion?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Like, honestly, like when he was nice to her, and I think that was great. But my sense of what I've seen, and I'm not an expert on their lives and who they are and where they're at, but I'm like, girl, no, like don't let him suck you back in, because he just does not seem like the person. Although he took responsibility, just my sense of him from knowing what I know and my experience and just my intuition, like he kind of seems like a bit toxic, to be honest, with how he navigates his emotions. And I don't think he's a bad person. I just think that he's handling his wounds and his insecurities in a toxic way. And I think that he needs to really get a handle on that and like navigating his insecurities in the heat of the moment in a healthy way if he really wants a relationship, especially with Diamond, you know? And I think that, yeah. And if he hasn't done that, like and he just wants to apologize and not necessarily actually do the work,
Yeah.
that's just going to set you up for a toxic cycle down the road. So I don't know. I just kind of got like a weird vibe when I watched the reunion where I was like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's well-meaning and you probably think that this is like really great and it is on one level, but like an apology doesn't mean shit if you like haven't changed the thing at the root of the toxic behavior, you know?
Yeah. Done the work. And yeah, I totally agree. I was like, wait, what is he doing? Why is he kneeling? And why is he doing this? I was like,
Yeah, and
but yeah.
yeah, and I kind of felt like too on the reunion, she was kind of like, no, like we're not gonna do that. And then he just like kind of kept at it, like kept
Yeah.
trying. So it didn't really seem like, you know, and again, like maybe she was really open to it, but I almost kind of wonder if she just needed to have stronger boundaries and not like allow him to like sweet talk her into being open to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but
I would definitely say he needs to work on himself first.
yeah,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
they'll be doing this back and forth thing still. Yeah, he didn't seem like too much changed. He definitely mentioned some hurt. He felt like he had a lot of like inner wounds still that would project onto her, I think. So I think, it's time to work on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was something that I wanted to say about Jessica, if that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So like something I felt with Jessica was I felt like she wants love, but I don't like that's what she tells herself anyways, but I don't think she like really wants love, right? So the thing that I say, and you've probably heard me say this before, which is like our our defense mechanisms are like survival mechanisms, right? And the whole point of a survival mechanism is to just not get hurt,
Mhm.
right? So it does not, absolutely does not create a healthy relationship. The goal of a survival mechanism is not to thrive and have amazing love. It is to just protect yourself, right? So if you are deeply afraid of rejection, which is a very real fear and a real pain, or abandonment, like Jessica mentioned, like abandonment issues that she had, right? Because of her dad, that is like that pain is like so deep and so real. Because, as a child, like that really, um, if you feel abandoned or rejected, like that can, in this deep level in your body, make you feel like you're gonna die, right? And you have these unmet needs because it's like you're dependent as a child on that closeness and that approval from your parents on like a biological level in order to survive, right? So it just feels like really wrong and really like scary and really bad to not get that. And so often as adults, we're still recreating those things, right? And trying to get those needs met. But something that like I think that she does really want love, but I don't actually think she wants it fully because I think that
Yeah.
there's a part of her that's afraid of it.
Yeah.
And so therefore what she is doing unconsciously, I feel, or I felt at the time, was she was like saying she wants love and like doing it and maybe even like opening herself up to it, but at the same time like sabotaging and pushing it away and like wanting the person that doesn't really want her back and like the unavailable person. And to an extent, like he was interested at first, but like how she kept hanging on, and granted it was like a short amount of time and she had to process and grieve, but there was just like a lot of like obvious self-sabotage behaviors around her, like being like, I want love, but like doing everything that her actions were showing otherwise, because I think that they were, defense mechanisms. And I also think too, I think that that's the part of her that, cause I believe she mentioned before how in like the reunion or something about that's kind of like her MO.
Mhm.
And I think that it's like, it's unconscious defense mechanisms, but it can also just be what we feel comfortable with, what we're familiar with, what we're an energetic match for, right? Like if you had like parents that were, not consistently present or like rejected you or whatever, that can be just what you subconsciously see as love and like what you feel familiar with and comfortable with, because your brain is like knows how to navigate that situation and like survive that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're happy, doesn't necessarily mean you're thriving, doesn't necessarily mean you're getting what you want, but your you're comfortable in it. You get it. You know how to handle those situations. So, but not necessarily something healthy. And it's not necessarily when we have like, especially if we have like low self-worth, we will often feel available love just kind of, it can be boring. And it can also feel weird and uncomfortable because we're not used to just being loved, you know? We think it has to be harder than that, and it really does not.
That's what I noticed her doing, is it seemed like she wanted to chase. Like she was used to chasing, and it felt weird because he was so there. She kept pushing these freaking attacks at him and saying all these things that would get him to leave, it seemed like. Like she was literally providing reasons for him to leave. And so the fact that he didn't, she's like, what? Like, yeah, it was like too easy. It was too stable. He was very secure. Because she threw a lot of attacks at him. And the fact that he seemed very stable, I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. But I agree. But I also think that there is something to be said. Like I did, you know, and I'm just like, I'm very sensitive and aware of these things. Like he was overall like really healthy and like secure and aligned in himself, like romantically, I felt. But I almost kind of like wonder and sense like potential like mom wound in him of like,
oh, yeah.
Of like wanting to be like being drawn to her and her continual kind of putting him through the ringer.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, which is something I see like is common in like men with like mom wounds. You know, like a common male wound with their mothers that they play out with women is like, you know, like feeling criticized, feeling unworthy, and just, you know, choosing women, being drawn to women that make you feel the way that your mom made you feel. And I think he put up with too much from her, for sure.
I completely agree. She was way too rude for him. He needed to stand up for himself. He needed to kind of grow some balls and be a man. And I think that was the only thing that I really think if he did that, if he showed up as a divine masculine, like, hey, that wasn't cool that you did that. And hey, like, I'm a sexy man, like, hold his power, I think she would have been more attracted to him. But the fact that he just kept going down.
Right. I think so too, but I also think that if he were like even more aligned, she still would have self-sabotaged.
Oh, for sure. I don't think they were a good match. Me personally, I just think they were a bad match. I think that the only reason she stayed is because she wanted to be on the show or give it a try. I think she wanted to stay on the show or to find love or try, or I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was very.
I think that's part of it, but I also think she just was genuinely confused because I think she had all these different emotions inside of her that she didn't necessarily fully consciously understand, where she's like, Barnett, but then this guy loves me and like I loved him and I felt this connection with him, but then like I didn't. And like, you know, I think she just felt like such a mix of emotions in like such a short period of time that like triggered so much of her like deep unconscious stuff at once that it was like a lot to sort through. That was my impression anyways. And I think that, I think that like the whole beautiful thing about the experiment is, and it makes me think of like long distance relationships, because me and Justin were talking about this the other night. Because we were just like having like a beautiful night. We were like listening to music and like kissing and talking and whatever. And it was great. But like we, you know, me and Justin, the first like year and a half of our relationship was long distance. Right. And so, and I dated a guy before Justin, and we were in a long distance relationship. And like the thing about that is like, in order to have like a strong relationship long distance, it's like you're pretty dependent upon like the emotional and like mental connection, right? So like, in order to feel close to someone who you're not physically close with, there has to be like this emotional closeness, right? And so to me, I think that like me and Justin, for example, we have such a solid foundation emotionally. And I don't think that this is the only reason, but I think that this contributed, like our long distance relationship, that created a really, we weren't like, of course we knew each other. We saw what each other looked like. We weren't hiding that. We weren't in pods or anything like that. But like, you know, we didn't see each other outside of our perception of each other online and what we shared with each other. And so I think when you're out in the world and, you know, you're around other people and you're in certain environments, you can have certain filters up and certain defense mechanisms up and like certain judgments up, right? And so I think when you connect, like the predominant intention is like to connect emotionally, so many of those like facades and like defense mechanisms like aren't there. You know what I mean? And I think when you have, like, I know when me and Justin met in person, there was a little bit of like a lag where we kind of had to like integrate that deep intimacy into like being with each other in real life. Where like, where at first, like when I first met him, like I remember the first day I was like kind of guarded and like nervous. And so was he. And it was like, oh my God, I just like feel so, I have such a deep emotional bond with this person. And now he's in person with me. Oh my gosh, like this is kind of crazy. Right. And like, I think it was similar for them where it's like they just went real deep, real fast. And I think that not a lot of people can handle that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they saw each other, they were just like, whoa, like, how do you bring that into real life?
Yeah. Which I think was the point of the experiment, you know, not a lot of people can handle that. But I think when you can, it is the foundation of a really solid relationship, you know?
Yeah. So what do you think the first steps for anybody listening that are, they're anxious or avoidant, what are some of the steps to kind of like witness or grow out of that? Like what would you recommend they do?
So, okay. So as far as avoidant people, I think that you have to really understand that if you really do desire a relationship in your heart of hearts that is healthy, that is satisfying, like you keep telling yourself, you have to actually be unwilling. You have to be willing, I mean, and this goes for like the anxious people as well. Like you have to be willing to feel some uncomfortable emotions, and that's not easy, but it's easier than holding yourself back from the desires in your heart that you really want, you know, like when you fall asleep at night, like, did you really go for it? Did you really like fulfill your potential of like the love that you can have, you know? And I think you have to really think about those things and think about what you really want. Cause I know for me, I had the anxious tendencies, I had the avoidant tendencies, and I've had uncomfortable feelings where it's like, I want to like get the hell out of like like I want to get the hell out of the closeness and the connection and the intimacy. But like, I have a deeper desire at play that's like motivating me, that is like, no, like I want a beautiful partnership and I want to have children and like I want to teach them beautiful, healthy, relate like ways of being and loving themselves and connecting with others. And that like that wins out above my bullshit where I'm trying to protect myself. And so you have to be willing to lean into those uncomfortable feelings, not just run away. You have to like reflect on your triggers. So if you're being avoidant, like some common ways that that's going to show up is, you know, things that we've touched on, like, you know, you may be choosing like unavailable people and like, you know, sabotaging yourself and choosing people that won't want you back or people that it couldn't work with, or even like being completely closed off or fearing commitment and monogamy and things, you know, and things like that. I'm not saying that's universally true, but it can be a thing. And you have to really just be honest with yourself, feel uncomfortable feelings, like be inquisitive with yourself and what you're feeling and why, and like do the thing that is in integrity, right? Like if you are pushing someone away because you're afraid that you're not good enough, the way to be in integrity with yourself is not to push away love. It's to, you know, feel those uncomfortable feelings and really work on the part of you where you don't feel worthy, right? So yeah, feel the uncomfortable feelings and like really look at yourself and like what you're feeling and why, and like call yourself the fuck out, call yourself out on your own bullshit and do something about it, right? And then like the anxious people, I think, you know, it's I think for anxious attachment people, so much of it is knowing that the answer, the safety, the fulfillment is not found outside of yourself, right? Like, you know, you think that if you get consistent text messages, if like the person is really adoring of you consistently, that all of a sudden you're going to feel better, you're going to feel whole, you're going to feel worthy, you're going to feel happy and complete. And you might get a taste of that. You might get temporary tastes of that, but I promise you, it does not work. It does not heal you. It does not fulfill you. It does not heal. it does not give you that sense of wholeness that you are craving on the inside. And I have worked with many women and a few men, but women that are chasing this wholeness, not like through men, through their relationships, through success and achievement and income and emotional eating, or, you know, thinking that they'll feel good when they'll feel worthy once they lose the weight. Like, all of that is fucking bullshit. All of it is an illusion. And you have to give that to yourself. Like, that wholeness is not going to come from any of that. Trust me. I've made all of those mistakes for you already. But it's like, the real wholeness, the real juicy thing that you're searching for is something that you can give yourself through working on your self-worth, through really getting to the core of your anxieties, and creating an unshakable sense of security and worth and wholeness inside of yourself, independent of your relationships, independent of your circumstances, independent of your weight. And that is true abundance, that nobody can take away from you, that will naturally create beautiful freaking relationships and health and weight and income and all of the things in your life in a way that just feels so damn good. So yeah, long-winded, but go within. Not
great.
Yeah.
Being anxious, I completely relate to that. Like, even just recently, I've done so much work on myself, and I think it's normal to still have some reactions or fears come up and then have a little burst. So maybe it wasn't as bad. And recently I had to be like, no, I've already grown a lot, but it's okay for fears to come up again and my anxious tendencies to come up, and then look at them and maybe communicate, share your feelings, share maybe to your partner or somebody how you're feeling. And I remember I used to think that was so scary. Like, I can't tell them how I feel, or then I'll be hurt. But now that I've been doing that, it's been powerful. It's made me feel more like I'm in control versus me not sharing it and then they leave. Now I'm like, okay, I shared my feelings. And then if they leave, I showed up and I know I tried my hardest. And I think when we get those anxious themes, I'm emotional authority in my human design. And so if I'm really, really high or really, really low, if I make decisions, it's not very good. So usually if I get that anxious tendency, I'm like, okay, don't make any sudden moves, and then get back to normal. Get back to like my, like, okay, give myself something. Maybe it's take a nap, do a meditation, take a bath, put my phone away, and then maybe talk to him in the morning, and it usually goes away. That like, the freaking world is ending. They need to give me something, or I hate them, or they hate me, or something's wrong.
Right. I completely agree with that advice. It's like, in general, I think it's so important to not act on those survival mechanisms, because again, like, make it a freaking mantra if you have to, but like your defense mechanisms are just to defend and survive. They are not to create a healthy relationship. So
Yeah.
they will potentially sabotage something really beautiful. So you can't act from that place. You have to center and like come back to yourself. And when you're in a more neutral place, like really reassess the situation from there. And, you know, with my clients that I work with, oftentimes they have like really, you know, pretty intense like abandonment issues and anxious tendencies and low self-worth issues and fears of being like cheated on and things like that. And so when they get like, they can get like really triggered to where they can't even like think straight, you know, and they're like, is he like, you know, and, you know, and that's like, when I work with my clients, we like get to the root of like those defense mechanisms and like heal them. And it's often like childhood stuff and things like that, to where that doesn't happen anymore. But yeah, I agree. Like you don't act from that place.
Yes, actually this happened recently and I've been doing so good, and I was wondering almost like maybe it's because it's been like pretty sturdy that I like caused some freak out. Like, it was almost like I was searching for a reason to freak out because it's actually been pretty sturdy. And I was like, why did I do that? And in the morning I was like, there was nothing to freak out about, but I just made it the end of the world. And I was just like baffled. I was just like, and then I talked to him in the morning and I was like, he was just like, what's up? Like, my freaking story in my head was freaking crazy. And if he heard it, he was like, I went to bed and I was tired, and I was just like, ah! And so if I would have just put my phone down and relaxed and went to bed, it would have been fine.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things, right? Like we have negative expectation inside of us because of like unaddressed wounds or wounds that are in the process of being addressed and beliefs, right? But also like sometimes it's like we have an affinity for drama because we don't let love be easy. And so it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's what we feel comfortable in. That's what we feel safe in, because we don't actually have like solid self-worth, to where, you know, where we let love be easy. And I think when we really, really feel worthy, we let love be really easy and really good. And that doesn't mean that, that there's not going to be things that come up that we have to work through, because relationships do take work. But I think it really is about in our most natural state of who we really are, beyond the wounding and conditioning, like love is natural to us and loving others is very natural to us too, you know?
Yeah, and letting it be easy. Oh, I definitely have that belief that relationships are hard. It's hard to overcome that. So anybody, if they want to fund me to go work with her, I'm gonna work with her someday. But yeah, no, like honestly, all these things I'm like, I know I have to like heal and work on, and I've grown so much, but it's just like, yeah, there's definitely some wounding still in me that I react. And when it's good, sometimes I notice, yeah, I create drama, or I don't know. I've definitely realized that. And so at least I know. So people listening, like being aware and then taking yourself out of the situation. And my last thing is don't, like you said earlier, don't be like, oh, if they did this, then I'd be secure. Be secure whether or not, right? Like just be that stable person. Maybe it's not for them, but you're like practicing to be that secure person. I don't
Right. And something, and I know, again, preaching to the choir here, because I know you like follow my content, but it's like the thing that was like a game changer for me that I really preach and teach my clients is like, to me, security, because I used to feel so unsafe in relationships. Like, is he going to like me? Is he going to like me back? Like, will I have the relationship that I want? Like, what if he breaks up with me and I have no control or no power? What if he cheats on me? Like, I just felt powerless from that place and like really anxious and like codependent. And like, I had to, be manipulative or passive aggressive or whatever, play games in order to try and get something from them so I could feel safe. And instead of just like cutting out the middleman to feel that way. And to me, and I believe in like energy and law of attraction, and I think that it's like our energy is powerful. And if our reality is responding to us, I believe. And so if we are responding emotionally to what is happening in our reality, we're just going to create more of that. And so we have to break, in order to break the cycle of like what we're experiencing, we have to have a different feeling separate from our reality, which to me is about having beliefs that things are working out for you and like people love you and you are good enough and you're meant to have what you want, and like beliefs like that, independent of that nobody else can take away from you, where you have this inner security despite what's going on in your love life, just like you could, like in business, right? Like what that security for me in business feels like is, I don't technically know I don't plan my business out a year in advance, but, I have income goals and I have like certain goals around certain things. And it's like, I know how to launch. I know that, I know how to like be like, I'm inspired. Like, it's just, there's just this self-trust, where it's like, I know what I'm doing. And so I know how to make money. So it's like, I don't have to have the money that I'm going to make next year in order to know that I'm going to make money next year. Does that make sense? And it's like the same thing.
just like trusting yourself and knowing, okay, I'm putting in the action. Of course, it's just going to work out. If I'm putting in the work to lose weight, of course it's going to work out, instead of second guessing along the way. Oh, did I lose weight? Oh, did I lose weight? Oh, did I lose weight? It's just like, oh, it's going to happen either way. And just trusting the process. I'm making the changes. It is going to work out in my, my highest good. And that's
and you're in control. Like you're always in control. And the part of you that believes, and not from like a control of like, I need to control people to feel safe, because that really actually comes from an energy where you don't feel like you're in control or safe. Mm-hmm. But it's like a genuine, like, no, I'm in control of my life. It's like this empowered self-trust, like taking responsibility, empowered place to be. And I think that that's a really great place to be at. And I think that, yeah, I was going to say something else, and I think it just it just left me. But yeah, I think it's really about having that independent of your reality, and that's every. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is like that's everything, because it's like when you're in that anxious, negative headspace in relationships, in business, in any area, like that is going to fuck you up every time. It's going to influence your actions in a way that sabotages you, that does not serve you, like in any area. So
one of the things I've been doing is like, okay, what do I want to do in this circumstance? How can I make myself feel good? Don't make it about them. How can just hold your power and like, okay, how do I be a powerful person right now? How do I provide for my needs? And then just like be like, I am fine by myself and I'm open and I'm loving and I am being the queen. And then, oh my gosh, it's like, it's almost like as soon as I feel that energy and that power and like, ooh, whether or not he takes me out, whether or not he shares his emotion, whether or not when I say like, I care about you and he doesn't say it back, whoa, the energy changes and he usually comes to me.
it's magnetic.
Yeah, it's like magnetic. It's like I'm the queen, I'm the powerful being. And so kind of practicing that I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Awesome. So you guys, I know this is a long, awesome, juicy episode. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments and the reviews, and screenshot this and tag us. We have the links in the bio. We'd love to hear what you think. If you guys go on Instagram and share it, like message us, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And go follow her. If you guys want to work with her, the links are in the bio. I know I do.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so fun.